Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to take this piece of driftwood that I found and refinished. You can check it out in that video right there. And today we're going to convert this into a hanging chandelier. So I've got all the products, I got everything with us. I'm going to walk you through the process. I bought these things off of Amazon. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. I hope you stick around and let's see what kind of mess we can create today, okay? Okay, so I just took some chain that I had, attached it to the ceiling. I'm not really worried about where I attached it because this is not how I'm going to hang it. But I do want to hang it so I can get an idea of where to drill, where to drill the holes for the lights to drop down. I'm only going to do 3 lights, and then I'm going to take the rope and wrap it around each of the ends. So let's go ahead and mark where our spots are going to be for the lights to drop down. All right, so before I go ahead and drill holes, I want to make sure that this is going to have the right angle. As you can tell, because it's so twisted, I don't want to hang it up like that. So I've got to find a spot that I could consider to be center. And then I'm going to drill holes big enough to put this wire through it, okay?
So the marks were already on the wood, so I just needed to drill one of the holes with a 3/8 bit. The lamp wire is also 3/8, but it's covered with that rope. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be too tight, which it wasn't. Go ahead and get those other 2 drilled, and other than this thing swinging and swaying all over the place, pretty quick process, pretty easy and straightforward.
Okay, so I got this bag of these light sockets here. It comes with all the parts. You can see there. It's kind of got a kind of a blackish, grayish, maybe a pewter finish. I've got this, which is actually lamp wire. You can see right there, that lamp wire, but it's rope. And then I've actually got rope because that's what I'm going to end up hanging it with. All right, I kind of wanted to show you just the layout of how this all goes together. So what's tricky is that this rope gets really frayed, but you've got to cut enough to where I can feed through the 2 caps, through the socket, through this guy, and into here, obviously. So the more and more I pushed back on the rope, it became really nasty and frayed. Now, the way I fixed that is I took just a small piece of shrink wrap and then fed it through the top and then heated it just a little bit to where it would be nice and snug. Not fantastic, but you know what? This is going to be up hanging, so I don't really think that's going to be in your face. So hopefully this will work. I'm going to catch the assembly of this whole process right now.
So I just followed those instructions and everything was pretty smooth. I had to make all 3 of them first before I did the lamp. And by the time I got to the 3rd one, I figured out what not to do. Make sure you have a real small screwdriver. There's some tiny little holes, screws on the side of that socket, and get that all nice and screwed in there. Take your time, and process is pretty easy. Once I tighten the screws in on the positive and the negative wires, the rest of it was just really tightening and making sure that that if I put a light bulb in there, that it wasn't going to get too loose or shaking around. Overall, I think all 3 of those putting together, maybe 40 minutes, I guess. I got faster as I went along, so maybe if I were making 5 of them, I could get my speed down, but it was pretty straightforward. The shrink wrap could have easily been replaced with something else, but once I got that cap screwed on there, that piece right there just looks ugly. So I could have done possibly some electrical tape, but the shrink wrap really seemed to be the easiest method. Now, I don't have a heat gun and I couldn't find the hair dryer, so I used a lighter, which I don't advise, but I barely even tapped it on there just to shrink it enough to where it wouldn't move once I started messing with it.
Okay, just real quick, this is gonna go through these holes up here, each one of these hanging, and then I'm gonna have to wire each one of those together up here, and then run a plug. For this particular chandelier, it's going to be a plug-in, but you could hardwire it too. Just depends on the space that you have.
Okay, so with my pre-assembled lights, I just thread those through the hole, right? It goes pretty easy. I repeat that a couple times. I knew that, ideally I would want to have this hardwired, but I don't have a spot in my house for that. This gives me the flexibility to hang it somewhere else, or possibly if I sell it. So once all three of these get in there, then obviously I've got to attach all of those to the incoming power cord, which is also going to be that hemp rope. And so go through this process. It's a bit awkward in the garage, but once I get those all wired together, then it was just a matter of finding a spot that I could plug it in and give it a test. So I also wanted to make sure and secure the loose wire at the top of the chandelier. So I used some small wire clips that I screwed in and attached that to the top of the piece of driftwood. And that made it really nice and clean as far as I was concerned. You couldn't see the wires hanging all over the place, which I wanted to avoid. So this was coming along quite nicely at this point. All right, and now I needed to secure some eye hooks to both sides of the piece, because that's what I was going to actually use for the rope. So I'm going to put some little pilot holes in there, make sure that I'm kind of splitting the distance from end to end, make it as even as possible. Once I get the pilot hole in, the eye hook goes in super easy. And then I'm going to actually go through the hanging process where we tie the rope up. Yeah, get that nice and secured in there. I do the same thing on the other side, and then we're just about ready. It's almost there. So now I run the rope through the eye hooks and essentially tie a slip knot. It took me several times to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. Make sure I gave enough slack for whatever purpose I might ultimately use this piece at, or a location. So I make sure and that's nice and tight, and then I repeat it to the other side, right? So measure out and make sure that it's not going to be hanging low to one side or the other. So that took a little bit of back and forth, but you get the idea on that. So once I did that, I wanted to also include some video of the top of the piece. That's how I attached the rope, decorative rope on the sides. Just used a little fencing nail. It's the one that looks like a horseshoe. You can see the eye hook and the rope, how I have that tied to it. Also, the top where the wires come through, you can see that rope wire comes right here to this junction where I've got those all wired together with some wire nuts. The middle one goes right through there as well, and obviously this one right here also loops back in and is wired all together. I have the power cord, which is exactly the same as the wire, and it goes all the way up to the top, ample slack. You can see how I've just got it hanging on that hook. But again, without knowing where a plug's going to be or the final destination of this piece, I wanted to make sure I had that flexibility built in. those are the little conduit hooks that I used. Anything I guess would work, but I used that, and then a couple of twist ties, and have that secured as well for the power cord that comes in. It just runs all the way up to the top. So pretty self-explanatory there. And obviously, if you have any questions, make sure and let me know, and I'll do my best. Here's the final product, and I can't tell you how happy I am with this. It really looks rustic but elegant. I know that a lot of you have asked, what do I do with those final pieces? And so here you go. Granted, I wish I could hang this over my dining room table, but it just wouldn't work there. And so this turned out fantastic. And from finding and finishing to this, that's the whole life cycle of the project, and really makes you feel just really good. But appreciate the comments. Keep the comments coming in. I need them. Subscribe, because y'all are motivating me to really get out there and do some more stuff. Y'all have a good one.